So we were at the end of the year, we were going to start figuring out how to spin things down. And so we had a handful of ideas. And like I'd mentioned, like we had tried the idea for Bolt in February of last year and the models weren't good enough. And so in May, we got an early preview of Sonnet and we're like, this changes potentially everything. This is really good. And so July 1st, we greenlit it. And then in October, we launched it. And in the first 2 months alone, we went from 0 to 20 million of ARR in the first 2 months. It's just kept growing since then. And to buy knowledge, I mean, it's like by traffic and revenue, whatever. I mean, this is like the number one web-based code gen thing in the world. And I mean, in developer stuff, I think it's second only to like Cursor, which is crazy because it's been out 4 months or something. Like the speed here is wild. But yeah, I mean, we went from, being ready to shut down the company, to now something that's huge.
All right, welcome everyone. My guest today is Eric, the CEO of Bolt. Bolt is an AI coding platform that's exploded from 0 to 3 million users. And I'm excited to watch Eric demo building a mobile app from scratch with AI and also talk about how his overnight success was actually 7 years in the making. So welcome, Eric.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm stoked to be here. Yeah, so shall we dig in? Should I start with just to dive right in? Should I demo this thing?
Yeah, let's do it, man. I mean, you just launched this product, so I'm just excited to take a look. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, so for those who haven't heard of Bolt before, it's like a text to app product. And so I'm going to go pull my screen here. And so it's really the simplest interface in the world. What do you want to build? And there's just an input box. You can type anything. And so we started with just full stack web applications. We still do that insanely well. And this week we just announced that we also now support building native mobile apps for iOS and Android. So you can go from idea to app store just by prompting. It's like pretty mind blowing. So I'll show you I'll start with one example, we have this build a mobile app with Expo. So we partnered with Expo if folks are familiar, but they've got the best React Native tooling and ecosystem in the world.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. So build me a mobile app that, and I'll start with a simple one, is a clone of Spotify. See if this works. And so this is the core experience of Bolt here. So it at this point looks like ChatGPT or something until this right side of the screen comes in and we have a full developer environment that's booted inside of the browser. This is what we spent the past 7 years building, was this technology to boot an OS inside of your browser tab, right? But anyway, so it's getting to work. It's installing all the dependencies we need. It's writing all the code. It's going to go ahead and quickly spin up a clone of Spotify here. And one of the main things people really love about Bolt is that we've done a lot of work to make the actual user interfaces it builds to be really beautiful. And so once this thing boots up, you'll kind of get to see that. But this is kind of the core of the experience. And it took this very seriously. It's making a very sophisticated clone here of Spotify.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things as a beginner programmer is just installing all the libraries is a pain in the ass. So it's nice that it's doing all that for you already. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. That's what I think, especially with Bolt, the bi-directional, communication between the operating system layer and the AI agent. The AI agent has complete access to all of the processes and the runtime and all the errors that are happening, the state of the file system, or whatever have you. So it can, when things go wrong, you can really dig in and drill in. And so you can see here, this is a native iPhone app here.
That's great, man. Yeah.
This looks like Spotify, right? It's pretty insane how well. So you kind of get the idea, and this is just the UI, right? So we can keep prompting and building on top of this. And so, but this is I think someone that people use Spotify or music apps, you kind of get an idea. I mean, that's zero shot, right? I mean, it's just off the dome, just whip that thing up. So it's let's maybe start another app. And we were kind of talking via before this, what would be kind of a cool app to build? And so, I was mind blown to find out that Calm, the meditation app, is worth $3 billion,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So it's you want to start a $3 billion company right now?
Let's do it, man. Yeah.
All right. So build me a mobile app that is, a simple meditation app, have it be, beautiful and minimalistic. And so this is you can, obviously you can create a PRD type document where you can really outline what you want if you want to be specific. But a lot of times it's fun and you actually get really great results just by kind of giving your general idea and then throwing vibes at it, what does it mean to be beautiful and minimalistic? We're going to find out. Yeah, this is Carpathius, you got the vibe coding thing. It's kind of true. I mean, you can really go to this thing and, give it what the sort of feel you're looking for.
If like a super genius like Kaparthi is doing it, then like I have no shame in just like vibe coding too. Like
totally, it's fun. I mean, and it's like it's not like you're gonna go and at this point with where Frontier AI is at, it's not like you're gonna go and someone at JP Morgan Chase is not like vibe coding transaction logic, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're building user interfaces, it's a great you can just be very creative and kind of spitball with the thing. So one thing I want to show here, actually, so Peter, you can pull out your phone and do this too. So the cool integration with Expo is we have a mobile preview you can see on the web, which I showed earlier. But if you actually, Expo has this app called Expo Go, you just download that. Then you pull out your camera app and take a picture of the QR code. What it'll actually do is over the air in real time, it will take the app that you are building and build it up on your phone. Hopefully this works, across wherever where are you based out of actually?
I'm in the Bay Area.
Okay. So, all right, so you're probably connected to the same point of presence that I am for this thing. All right. Uh-huh. But so I just booted this up. Here's the app that we're looking at on my phone here, this meditation app. And you can actually use it. It's like completely, it's like functional. I can go between the different tabs and whatnot. Right. And so as I'm prompting this thing, it will actually just update like live on my phone, right? So it looks like, for example, this timer, this is just like a placeholder that we got here, right? So I can actually say, make the timer, work and just hit enter. And it's going to get to work and actually go in and make that timer happen.
How does it know to make like multiple tabs and stuff? Like you have some like default prompt or something that
We've got some default prompts, like things that, we think it'll, different like fast tracks of like, hey, you'll have the best experience kind of doing these things. And you're kind of injecting, context that'll, make more holistic sort of apps. Right. And now if I go ahead and click here, it should start counting down and it does. Right. It looks like we can turn on ambient sounds. I don't know if this works right now. Let's see. It's probably a placeholder. No.
Yeah, okay, so upload some sounds. Yeah.
Let's add some sounds. Like, let's see why, normally like, if you want the best experience, you probably will go find some MP3s and drop it into Bolt, which you can do. But I'll just say, make the sounds actually play real sounds, when you click them.
This goes against everything I know as a PM, man. Like these kind of like, this kind of requirements. It's just like if I tell an engineer this, I don't think he'll be very happy. Yeah.
No, not at all, right? Not at all. And the kind of cool thing is like before, like we're just on the whim, just prototyping an idea, which I think is cool, right? Because it's like, StackFlitz, my co-founder and I, we started StackFlitz Bold like out of a coffee shop, just spitballing what would be kind of cool ideas to try, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, the AI will write code that's, not valid or, there's something missing. And this is like one of the nice integrations that we've got in Bold is it'll actually capture that. And then you can, actually do something useful with it, right?
And maybe after this, let's try to make it look a little bit more like calm. Like maybe you can just like upload a screenshot or something. Like
we can totally do it. Yeah. We can totally do it. And let's see if this works. Hopefully, okay, there we go. Cool. It might be a browser issue. Let me go ahead and pull it up on my device. Let's see if we can get this rolling. This is another actually cool thing about Bolt is like if something's going wrong in the dev environment, you can actually just refresh the page. It's booting an entire operating system from scratch in here, right? If you ever use any of these other online IDE code things, big problem is like, some of the dev environments, this happens with dev environments locally. They just like go wrong, right? And so be able to just like boot the thing from the ground up here and just have the dev server be completely starting up from scratch. It's on all the dependencies, writing the code. Huge advantage because, now before there was some error happening in the dev server. Now it's not happening. And that's just because something in the operating system, got wonky.
Just like rebooting a computer.
It's 100%, right? And so and when you think about web apps all the time, like stuff happens with these things, right? And how do you get back to a fresh state? You hit the refresh button. But if you're using like a cloud VM to do that work, that's like not how it's going to work, right? So that's the general idea. And so we can add whatever functionality we want, but it went out and grabbed MP3s for these things. And if some of them work or not, okay, well, it tried its best to find MP3s that would work. But that's the general idea.
This episode is brought to you by Vanta. Whether you're a startup founder navigating your first audit or a security professional scaling your GRC program, security has never been more critical or more complex. That's where Vanta comes in. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks like SOC 2 and the ISO 27001. Vanta can help you start or scale your security program by connecting you with auditors to conduct your audit and set up your program fast. Plus, Plus, with automation and AI throughout the platform, Vanta gives you time back so you can focus on building your company. Join over 9,000 global companies like Atlassian, Quora, and Factory who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. Get $1,000 off at vanta.com/Peter. That's VANTA.com/Peter for $1,000 off. Now back to the episode.
Let's try to redesign the UI a little bit. Let's try to maybe like just do like Google, just like a Google image search or something.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so maybe like get a screenshot of Calm.
Yeah, like the Calm timer thing or something. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see what it can do here. There we go. I like that UI. That looks cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and save this, and then I will go ahead and over here, and I will drag her in. I'll say, make the timer look like this UI. Let's see what it does. It'll get to work. It's doing it.
I mean, I feel like these AI code gen tools like both are like really exceptional at front end stuff, right? They're like, yeah.
Look at that.
Oh, nice. It knows to expand it. That's funny.
Let me go to like responsive, get a little bit bigger. But yeah, so it's like going in and out. I can then prompt it, say, hey, make that circle, make the breathing smaller. You can go and do that. But yeah, I mean, it took that because before there wasn't even a circle. I mean, there was like a timer countdown, right? Like this thing, it just kind of ascertained, okay, yeah, like this is, you're going to start the breathing thing and that's going to it should probably go like that, right? So it got that from like a screenshot. We didn't say anything about that.
Yeah, it needs to expand the circle. Yeah.
Exactly.
And how would I actually deploy this to the App Store? Or maybe like, is there a way to show that? Or
yeah. So the way that you deploy something like I said, now it's like fitting properly within the viewport and it's doing its thing. It's got the timer countdown out there. But yeah, I mean, to make a mobile app like this, I mean, this would, getting Xcode and all the stuff set would be insane. I don't even know how half this stuff works. I don't know most of it works, right? And so if you want to, you're like, hey, this looks really great. I want to get this to the App Store. So we actually, up in the top right here, you can build a web version of this if you want, and then you instantly that'll be online. If you want to go to the App Store, you can click deploy to App Store, and that takes you over to Expo. So what Expo does, all the tooling kind of that you're seeing there, like running this app, et cetera, that's all their stuff, right? They also have this thing called EAS that is basically like their fast track to actually like building these things and getting it into the App Store. And so for both Apple and Google, you have to sign up for individual accounts, right? To go and actually do that. But then EAS, you can run from like command line, whether it's like locally or in Bolt, and you can actually say, take this Expo React Native project. They will bundle it up, and then using your App Store credentials, they will publish that to test flight or actually into App Store review. But it's like, it takes like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, maybe. If you already have all this stuff set up, like you register on Apple or Google, and then you just link EAS with those, like it's wild how fast it is to actually get deployed. I think the Expo folks actually made a video going from like idea to App Store with the launch of this week when we did. Yeah. I think that we're doing a live stream with them, I think like next week or something. But yeah, they've done a phenomenal job, of making this crazy easy to actually take these things to the App Store.
Yeah, I love how you kind of partner with these other platforms like, Expo for deployment to App Store and also Superbase for databases, right? To extend Bolt's functionality. Yeah. Yep,
absolutely. Yeah. So up here, if we want to add a, Superbase database, we can click. So if we want to have like user login and let people, track their meditations or share it with friends, I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
You can build full stack web and mobile apps with this, and yeah, like there's, the Expo's great at mobile, Superbase is great at database. The hosting, like we do a web build of this thing that's using Netlify to do the hosting. So we've got great integrations with the best companies in the world that specialize in this stuff, just built in out of the box.
And how about if I want to refer a change or like, can you like walk through some of that?
Yeah. So like this one, right? So, I said, make the breathing circle smaller. And so right here on every message, there's and the most recent one, there's an undo button, and on all the other ones, you can say roll back to checkpoint, right? So if let's say we didn't like this change, I could just, hit revert, and what'll happen is now we have the big circle back again.
Oh, that was fast. That's like almost instant.
Yeah, because we're checkpointing every single message churn, and so then you would basically just calculate the diff, apply it, and then the dev server picks that up and recompiles it, usually within milliseconds. So
that's great, man. Because I was using some other IDE the other day, and like I had to use like GitHub and stuff, and like do all these commands.
Yeah,
it's just kind of a pain too.
Yeah, it's like a huge pain, right? And often with these, the reality of using these AI, prompting based, text to app things is like, the AI is just going to do stuff sometimes. It's going to take what you say and it's going to like kind of be, do something that, is following your instructions, but like isn't. And you're like, oh crap, okay, I need to roll that back and like change what I actually want. And like, and so what you need to have this sort of, having that be a fast process where you don't have to like dig around how to like check out a specific command or, whatever, right, is a pretty key part of, the experience, to allow you to actually use these things well.
Okay. So do you have any, can you give me like your top, 3 to 5 tips for actually getting the most out of both, like beyond just like vibe coding? Like what are some tips to actually?
Yeah, if you're like really building something, if you're building like an app, or you're not just like, we're just having fun here, right? But if I really wanted to like take this to production, I mean, a lot of this stuff is you're sitting down and kind of planning out like, hey, what am I looking for, right? Like having a clear idea of, okay, what should the different pages be? How should they like what should generally be on them? How should it work? Like what exactly I'm looking for? Because when you come into the prompt here, it's like coming in with that information and you can like, actually list out the different things you need. It has a huge swing on this thing's ability to actually make an app that's going to really fit your requirements. And then with that, you want to break it into concrete. You don't want to like just throw an entire PRD at this thing or whatever. You want to like break it into concrete tasks where, like, for those who are an engineer, right? It's like the same way you would start out. If we wanted to build this app, what would we do? We would build out just building the UI. We would be like, okay, does the breathe functionality work? Okay, yes, it does. And this like generally looks good. Okay, let's go to this tab. Does this look and function, like without all that core business logic? Does the skeleton of this thing actually like work? Yes or no, right? Once you kind of get that done, then you go, okay, now let me add my database. Let me add authentication. Like, let me go get the actual MP3s to play this thing from, all those sorts of things. Like you want to start adding the logic in once the UI is complete, because you're kind of just delineating then like what the AI is focusing on doing. It's not focusing then on like UI stuff. It's just focusing on, hey, when that button gets clicked, you're going and, you're going and like registering the user in Supabase, right? Versus if you were saying, okay, make me a login page that has Supabase right up. And like, sometimes it can do that, right? But if when things go wrong, you have to like completely revert. But some things are working for that one prompt. It's like, you can't granularly kind of roll back that, okay, no, that one part wasn't quite right, because all this stuff is combined in a mega, commit basically from the AI, So that would be kind of my recommendation. This is like anyone, building products in general. It's like have a plan and then, kind of like really think through what you want, break down, those into specific chunks. Start with the UI first, get the UI to really be great. And then break out the chunks of, okay, now like, let's make the login page actually log you in. Let's make the registration page actually register you for account, and then like that sort of thing.
So you do want to write like a PRD or maybe help get AI to help you write a PRD, but you don't want to feed the whole thing into both at once. It would get confused. So you want to do it one by one. That's what you're saying.
Typically,
right?
That would be my recommendations. And again, you can actually get good results by just feeding the entire thing in and zero shot. It'll like get it all right or most of it right, But you can try that. And if it doesn't work, then you can just say, okay, let me just start from scratch and just kind of break it out piece by piece then, right? But but generally, if you do the work of having a PRD, which is like just a fancy way of saying like having a plan, like of like how each page works and how the functionality will work, it puts kind of, bumpers on what the agent is going to actually go and do, which is just really helpful for you to actually get to the end zone and have a great app really quickly,
And how about, I think you can probably stop sharing now. Let's chat about stuff. Yeah. But how about like when I get stuck in this like, doom loop, right? Where like keeps making bugs. Like, so obviously you can hit the button, like fix the bug, but what if it doesn't work?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, this is kind of the problem with all of these things is that inevitably you'll end up, and I think if you like try and fix a bug, hit the fix bug button, like more than 3 times in a row with us, we go, okay, like let's take a step back. Like, can you describe what you're seeing? Can you go and, do some ancillary research on what is happening with this, et cetera. I think so today that's like kind of the best way to get unjammed is like to, go like in our Discord and say, hey, I'm running into this thing, or Google and see if there's information, that you can find that'll be helpful. The kind of the next stuff we're rolling out that's cool. We announced this one already, which is, it's called like the Bolt Builders, but basically, oftentimes you just kind of need someone who's, like an expert, on development stuff to like step in for like anywhere from like 10 minutes to like 30 minutes, right? To just come in, help figure out what's going wrong, and get you on your way. And so we're actually rolling out a program like in Bolt. There's going to be a button where you can say, hey, like connect me with someone live that can like go and punch in.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's like there's all this stuff. People are like, AI is going to replace developers. You're like, no, it's not. Like, it's not. Like, the developers are more important than ever, but they just get to focus on solving hard problems instead of just slamming out HTML and CSS, right? And so that's kind of one aspect of something we're rolling out. And then the second one is just there's been a lot of work being done on reasoning models that are making a huge difference in how effective debugging can be. And we were beginning to roll this out now by default in Bolt, where when you say, like when an error occurs, you say, hey, fix this thing. We're going and doing multiple different passes across different models, and different reasoning models to get like sort of like mixture of experts sort of opinion on what's actually happening here, right, and solving it. And that stuff is pretty effective. So I think as new models come out and they keep improving, et cetera, it's like the errors that you run into where you need to raise your hand for developers is going to keep going down and approach zero, right? But yeah, that's kind of it's a two-pronged approach with like technology and people, this is how it's done.
So if I keep running the bugs on Bolt, you actually tell me to calm down, like maybe show the calm screen. It's like, so this.
Sit here and meditate for a minute, just real quick, and then you can keep prompting. Yeah, it does. I think in the error message, say like it says like, hey, like listen, like you've hit the fix button a couple of times. You might want to go and here's our Discord to like see what's going on, or like you might want to Google, like blah blah. Because it's like people will just kind of sit there and just keep hammering it, which is really frustrating. And for people that haven't done a lot of development before, understandably, it's like there's a button that says fix it. So why wouldn't I click it, right? Or like attempt fix, or and so it's just you keep hammering that thing. But the reality is like often there's some context that's missing. And, especially if it's like context that's specific to how your code base is set up, which these things end up, all specializing at some point or another, you need to have that additional context either come in from another human, from a Google search you did or something, right? Or like whatever have you. Or you have a reasoning model that's like going and, thinking hard about it and is like, oh, maybe that's it, so.
Yeah, I think it's really smart to build the reasoning stuff into Bolt, because like normally what I do is I copy the code to like ChatGPT or 3 or something to try to get it to solve it. But like, it doesn't have all the context of all my files.
Exactly. So, yeah, exactly. So that the early stuff we've been doing on that, it's very effective at, really improving the debugging experience because it's, has full access to the context.
That's a key differentiator, man, if you guys solve that. Cause like I find with these code gen tools, it's kind of like the startup curve. Like you start like, oh, this is so amazing. And then you get stuck in this loop. It's like, oh, this thing is not working. And then eventually, hopefully people figure it out and get back on the path.
Yeah, totally. And that is the challenge for us and all the other stuff. And this is like, and I think the thing with the frontier model, they just keep getting better and better, right? So I think like 1 year ago, we tried building Bolt and it wasn't possible because the models at the time just weren't good enough. And now here we are, right? It's like now you can actually like, zero shot web and mobile apps, where like generally like you can build, meaningful stuff with these things, and you will run into errors with any of these tools, but there are errors where it's like today you just have to like go Google stuff and whatever have you. Tomorrow it's like these things are just not going to make those errors, right? Period. These entire classes of problems are just not going to be problems. And when I say tomorrow, I mean like literally like in the next couple of months, I think we're going to see some new models potentially coming out that just, really are step function improvement over this stuff,
It's nice to kind of work on a startup where like, you have your engineers, but you also have this like these giant companies spending billions of dollars, like making your product better is essentially, right?
Totally. Yeah. So, that for us to, it's Bolt wasn't, when we launched in October and it could start taking off like a rocket, it was like, we were, it took us about a month to kind of like really get our bearings straight of kind of what was going on here. But it became pretty clear, like, okay, this is, the code gen it makes sense because software is deterministic. Like when you write code and it executes, it either runs without errors or it doesn't. And so I compare that to like, if you have to make an LLM that's like good at law is subjective. Like it's like, how did the judge feel about it? Like what was society's general feeling at that time about that? It's like, that's not deterministic. Right. And so it's hard to do reinforcement learning, on that type of problem. That's like most problems, right? Kind of are those sorts of things. Software is not that. And that's like what Anthropic, I think, really identified. They were like, we can make the best coding models by just doing a ton of reinforcement learning on these things. And so I think it makes sense that they are getting better faster than kind of any of these other areas, right? That the LLMs could be used for, and that it's probably only going to accelerate.
I want to mention one other use case that most people might not know about with Bolt. So it's actually pretty good for like when my designer makes a mock-up and then I want to explore some variations, right? And then before I had to be like, hey, can you please explore this variation for me? Here's why. But now with Bolt and these other tools, I can just put their design into Bolt and be like, hey, can you make this 2 columns, or can you try this?
Yeah.
And then I can show them what it looks like almost right off the bat,
Yep. Totally.
So that's incredibly powerful, I think, for a PM.
Oh,
Yeah.
huge. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge, right? And I mean, even for this is what you're saying is actually one of the main use cases that we see companies, PMs and designers and entrepreneurs using us for is this isn't like, hey, you have to build your entire company using this app sort of thing. We have startups that are launched to make full stack apps and making money doing it, right? But when you look at existing companies, especially where they have existing code bases, the value of this is instead of today, if you want to make a high fidelity prototype, right? Typically you're going to do that entirely in Figma where you can click between these static screens, and that's a lot of work to lay all that stuff out, right? Whereas if you can just take your design system, your different components, you dump that into Bolt, and then you just say, okay, make me a web app or a mobile app that has this page with these requires this page, hit enter. Zero shot probably comes back with something that's pretty usable and you can refine over a couple of prompts. Boom. And that's a real app. You can say, here's an iPhone app, take a screenshot of this QR code, try it, end user, what do you think? And actually feel it, right? Actually not hey, how do you think this would feel in this Figma screen? It's touch the mobile app, how does it, and that's way faster for the product development, product discovery process, And so I think we're already seeing a lot of companies start to do this where they're just doing all of that stuff in Bolt, the high level designs, the design system, whatever in Figma, and then they're taking that and just putting it in Bolt, and that's where they're actually making their prototypes and stuff,
That's amazing, dude. Yeah, it's easier for me to generate the real app with Bolt than to try to fit it with auto layout or whatever Figma components there is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, but before it's unthinkable to go to the code prototyping stage first, because that's expensive, right? To have developers spending time just whipping up, it's that's unthinkable but the equation is completely changed now where it's cheaper and faster to have a real coded prototype. And that's crazy. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
So Eric, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about your company building journey. I think most people don't realize you spent 7 years building this company before Bolt came out of nowhere. Can you talk about basically right before you guys launched Bolt, what was going on and what happened afterwards? This whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I started this with my co-founder, Albert. He and I have been childhood best friends since we were 13. We grew up down the street from each other in Chicago. And he and I learned how to write software, when we were 13. And we've been building web apps and stuff ever since, and products and startups and whatever. And the core insight that we had of starting StackBlitz, which is the company behind Bolt, and it was the first product of this company, StackBlitz.com was a web-based IDE. The insight we had was actually it came from when we first came to Silicon Valley, we had the good fortune of bumping into Dylan Field and Evan Wallace when they were starting Figma. And this is back in 2012. And so we got to see kind of the story play out for those guys with what they were doing. And back in 2012, their first seed round or Series A that they raised or whatever, they didn't have a design tool. They had a demo of a 3D ball dropping into water inside of a browser tab. And the pitch was basically, browsers have gotten really powerful. They can now do complex 3D graphics rendering with WebGL and the predecessor to WebAssembly. Because of this, we think that we can make a design tool. We're going to have to create a new rendering engine for WebGL or whatever. But if we do that, we can bring design to the web, just like Google brought Docs, and we'll change everything. And obviously we know how that story, played out for them now. And it was this classic, deep technology, browser play. And so in 2016, 2017, we saw the same deep technology browser play emerge, but for development. And so specifically, there were some APIs that landed WebAssembly and shared memory and service workers. And we were oh, whoa, for the first time ever, you could actually write an operating system in WebAssembly, booted inside of the browser tab. So it boots in super fast, 100 milliseconds, could be a couple of megabytes in size. You have to write it from scratch. But if you could do that, you could run full web development tool chains in the browser. So you use the web to build the web. And which is kind of crazy. You can't do that, right? Like that seems like something that the browser should be able to like have built-in capability to like build. Windows has Visual Studio, Mac has Xcode, the web has nothing. So that was the origins. And really it was like we wanted to build the tool that we wish we had when we were 13, learning how to code, and heck, for everything we built since then, where it's just you go to, instead of having to spend, days, weeks, or months, like at big companies, it takes like a month just to get onboarded to the code base and have your environment set up locally. Like it would be great if you just open a browser tab and it just works. You have to even install anything, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
So that was kind of the core bet of the company. We got that technology to work. It took us like 4 or 5 years to really nail that. But the big challenge we ran into then is like developers had no interest in leaving their local environments. And so a lot of developers were using the product for free, and it was like, widely adopted in open source and stuff. We couldn't figure out the monetization aspect. And so, last year we were, the company was kind of on the rocks because we were like, we got to figure out how this like commercially makes sense to
make money.
To be a company, when you raise venture capital, you have to, you can't just sit around and, just make cool technology. It has to actually have real tangible business value that can grow quickly. And so we were at the end of the year, we were going to start figuring out how to spin things down. And so we had a handful of ideas. We're like, hey, here's different things we could try that would be, really interesting. And like I'd mentioned, like we had tried the idea for Bolt in February of last year, and the models weren't good enough. And so in May, we got an early preview of Sonnet, and we're like, this changes potentially everything. This is really good. And so July 1st, we greenlit it. And then in October, we launched it. And in the first 2 months alone, we went from 0 to 20 million of ARR in the first 2 months. It's just kept growing since then. And it's, to my knowledge, it's like by traffic and revenue and whatever. This is like the number one web-based code gen thing in the world. And in developer stuff, I think it's second only to like Cursor. But which is crazy because it's been, 4 months or something. Like the speed here is wild. But yeah, we went from, being ready to shut down the company, to now something that's huge. So
what's the secret? Because there's a lot of competitors, man. There's like V0 and like Replit. Like what's the secret between, scaling from 0 to 3 million in like four months?
Yeah. 0 to 3 million users, you mean? Yeah. Like, I think, all the technology we've been working on, like booting the operating system in the browser thing, that's called Web Container, what we made. Mm-hmm. And that is really that's the unique differentiator, because all the other tools in the market, when you go to them and you say, hey, make me an app, they have to provision a cloud VM to do that. And so often the free tiers of these things are very limited because they, otherwise people are going to be, mining Bitcoin or hosting phishing sites or whatever, because someone's got to pick up the bill for that cloud VM, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can hit all the networking that happens there. So if they're DDoSing people with it, like that's on you as the operator, right? And the experience as an end user, just the latency sucks. Like every keystroke has to be synced to a server, synced back. And so it's really hard to manage these things. Cause like, as we saw, like, like on the demo I did, it's like, sometimes these things will just like get into a weird state and you need to like just reboot it, How do you do that when it's like it's a cloud VM that the end user doesn't control and you have like, millions of people using this? How do you do that? How do you do that reliably? And I think that's the challenge a lot of people are running into. And whereas with Bolt, all the compute is done locally on the user's device, just like how Figma works, just like how Google Docs work. Like when you go to Figma, they don't spin up a cloud VM for every user that's using the product. Oh, it's running locally on your device. And that's the same thing that's happening with Bolt. Like we're not having to spin up a VM for every single user. So we have like a very permissive free tier. It's a great experience because there's no latency. It even works offline. If you just connect to your internet, you can keep like editing code and stuff and it still works. So that's like it's kind of like an under the hood difference that you wouldn't see it. Like even if you're technical, a lot of people are like, what? This is like, not using a cloud VM, but when it's that the things that you notice in the experience is that it's faster, it is more reliable. Like you can hit refresh and get back to a clean state, right? If things are wonky or whatever, right? There's not, there's a permissive free tier because, you don't have to worry about people mining Bitcoin. Although some people have come, like we've seen in our analytics, they're installing Bitcoin miners and they're sitting there and we're like, I don't think you know what's happening. Like you're using your electricity to mine the Bitcoin.
That's funny.
Anyways.
So from an end user perspective, they don't know anything about cloud VMs, but like the speed and the simplicity, I think is like, for me at least, that is like the differentiator, right?
Yeah, and the reliability too, because a lot of these other things, it's just you'll get disconnected. There's some like kind of cryptic error message that you go dig in and be like, oh, this thing ran out of memory, and then I mean some weird thing like that, right? And anyone who's worked in dev environments locally, this stuff breaks all the time. It just they're for a million different reasons. And so that is really the challenge, is like, if you want to provide a very reliable service, and that's, if you want to grow big, like have lots of people using your products, you have to scale reliability in a very, a very direct way. It's like, why is Chipotle so great? It's like, you can go anywhere in the world with a Chipotle and that burrito is going to taste like the same. It's like, it's great. Right.
Okay. So the Chipotle of the no.
Absolutely. Yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah. Like that's, I've been, or insert your favorite, like, large, like great, sort of company of choice. Right. Yeah.
I also like how you made the system prompts open source. Like, what was the decision behind doing that?
Yeah, unconventional. It was like a very uncomfortable one, but we were like, as we were building Bolt, we were looking out just, like in the open source world. I mean, typically the open source world is like a ton of great stuff, where it's like, okay, there's a frame of reference on this, blah, blah. But for this stuff, there was really not a lot. And so, and the more we thought about it, we were just like, this just doesn't seem like there's a real strategic advantage here. Like, for us, like we were like, if there is going to be something that differentiates us, it's like web container. It's like that in browser, the experience of that, right? Yeah. The system prompts, everyone figures out how to get around the system prompt. So you like protect yourself. Everyone's going to find out anyways. And on top of that, like we're going to let's just open source like the core of Bolt. Like, let's just open source the first version of this thing so people can play around with it. And like, let's see if, we've been doing a lot of work in open source for the past, 5-7 years here. So it's like, there's these tangible benefits that are kind of ineffable, but that are very real, where people adopting your open source products really is a tide that raises whatever boats your company has. And that is exactly what we've seen happen with Bolt. We're the only folks in like the web-based AI coaching thing, like that have anything open source meaningfully, much less like the actual product. Like, you can run Bolt like locally or host it yourself, whatever, with whatever model. And that's been amazing because, for our system prompts, the open source world is like tweaking these things. They're like finding out stuff we didn't know. I mean, it's basically like the world is getting to collaborate and do R&D on what are the best models for CodeGen? Like, what's the best way to tune this system prompt? Like, what are the different things we can do? And like, even product functionality, let's integrate Supabase or this. Like, that stuff landed in our open source version before we did it. Yeah. And so with the developers there, we've got a great relationship with all the people that have showed up to work on the thing, because we share our knowledge of the stuff that's working too. And we're like, hey, this is kind of what we found. And then, it ends up in the open source product. Yeah. When these new models come out, it's like, because our team is like 20 people, it's like we have 25 as of this week, but like, it's not a lot of people, and we're busy just keeping our servers online and just, that's that we're hiring as fast as we can. But I mean, to really deeply evaluate all the new models and stuff that are coming out is a gargantuan challenge. And so the open source world being able to actually do that and, glean those results, not just for us, but for everyone, is amazing. To the degree where like, the Frontier AI Labs are also using Bolt. It's called Bolt.diy. Like, they're using Bolt DIY to actually test out their new models and say, okay, because how else are they going to get this into a real production app where they can, rapidly test it? There's not many. So
that's brilliant, dude. Like, when I build products, I have like, like a Discord too, and a community, and like people give me feedback on the product, and like, my engineers try to build stuff. But like, the open source is like basically people are actually building the product for you, right? To a certain extent, like they're kind of building the product with you.
Yeah. Totally. And it's cool. And then people will take this back. They take parts of Bolt DIY and they put in their own products and stuff. And it's like, and that's like the thing, right? Is it's like, it's a situation where the pie is growing for everyone, And I think that I think the natural tendency, if you're starting like an AI company or whatever, it's like, we got to like kind of control our thing. It's like our secret sauce and stuff. And, like we have to increase our valuation, like it's just like all these like things. It's like, but the reality is, if you actually believe like, hey, this is not a winner takes everything scenario, and in fact, more people contributing is just going to increase the speed in which this pie is increasing for everyone, then it's like, okay, well, and let's be the best place that gives out free pies. Like, just to let everyone actually contribute and play around with this stuff in a real way.
I mean, the pie is still very small, right? Like the number of engineers, coders out of everywhere in the world is like tiny.
Tiny.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, and especially this is enabling people that have never been able to code themselves to actually build, and then the people that are like, there are like non-developers taking Bolt DIY and trying out you don't have to be a crazy developer to swap the models in and out and they get the stuff running locally. And so people are doing that. And these people, they understand, like a PM or a designer, like they're going to have a better perspective on how good is this model at making a product zero shot than like an engineer typically would, and so they're actually pulling this stuff down too and trying it out and be able to be part of the discourse that's happening, which is really important because their knowledge set and their skill set is really key to how products like Bolt are made and the AI models actually are getting trained, right, on good data. So anyway, so it's very cool to see the ecosystem that's spawned here, and I'm glad that we made that decision because it was it was like a nail biter. We're like, we may regret this, we might regret this, but it seems like it would be a good idea.
It's just like how Figma has like a Figma community, right? Like there are people making plugins and stuff. It's like amazing ecosystem. Yeah. I also like the reading your system prompt because they kind of confirm, because you have stuff like very important or like never do this. This is exactly how I try to prompt this stuff. It's like never.
It's true. Yeah. It's surprising. Our folks have chatted a lot with the AI companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is blessed recommendations from them.
Really? Yeah.
I was like, wow. Okay. Yeah. Cause I mean, when you see it coming from a programming perspective, it's like, that seems like when you go like Z index 99999 to get something to show up above everything. It's like, it feels like that sort of solution to it. But that's like actually, when you're doing prompt engineering, like you're having these kind of in exclamation or in caps, like, very important, critical, like it actually it has a difference, in the words and the capitalization or whatever.
So let's wrap up with like how you guys are building both internally, like how you guys are building this product. Like you say you have 25 people. Do you have any like product principles or values or like beliefs in making Bolt great or like building these AI products?
Yeah, good question. I think for us, like we want to build a product that is great for developers but is also great for people that love building products, and websites and web apps, and so like PMs, designers, entrepreneurs, etc. And so I think it's kind of interesting where balancing those, like there's not a lot of prior art or products that have been able to balance those because it's all prior to AI code gen, right? I mean, this is new territory. And so it's kind of tricky. You have to like, for us, we want to take bets because like there's only so many bets we can take with the size of team we have. We're scaling, but even then, like it's still a finite number of things we can sink our time into. And so it's like, what are the things that are going to be really great for both audiences? It's like, the analogy that I often like kind of lean on is like, it's like a power drill, like my mom uses a power drill, to install stuff at home, right? Like most homes in America, right, have a power drill, right? But so do most construction sites, like so do most professionals who build, structures, right? And so I think that the trick is like, how do you build a tool that's going to be able to really cater to different types of people and different types of use cases. And, that's powerful, but it's bounded and is, gives you like reliable results. And I think that's how we think of the tool and then the sort of bets that we're making. And I think the other thing is like, we expect the AI code gen, like the AI models to get better quickly. And if you look at kind of what happened before Sana came out, I mean, there's a lot of the other guys in the space for text to app or whatever, they existed. And they had all this stuff built out around RAG pipelines and like there's all this info they'd spent like a year building or whatever. And then Sana came out and then it just obliterated all that. Like Sana Zero Shot was better than all the stuff that they had spent, however much time and money making. And so we kind of look at that. It's like, so there's like a tsunami wave that hit, but we expect more to happen. And so how do you make bets, right, in product and engineering when you're on the beach, tsunami just came, there's probably another one. You probably don't want to like build a whole village, right? Like you don't want to like completely, set up a whole bunch of info that's going to get wiped out. Like you probably want to like get a really good surfboard, and kind of prepare for the wave that's coming in and set up structures that, some can be durable, some are designed to like be like, hey, this can and will get wiped out. And some things you just don't build because you're like, it's too expensive to invest or we think it's likely that this is going to happen. So that's kind of the multi-dimensional, sort of analysis and like kind of bet placing that we're kind of looking at least, right? And which I don't hear a lot of other people kind of talking about, because it's, I think there's kind of a hunger to just like laser in and do, build the best things now. But,
I think that's actually a really important point, because I talked to the granola founder too about this, and yeah, he made the same point. It's like, maybe your customers are screaming at you to improve this feature, but that the next model is probably going to improve it for you. It's like you don't want to do something that the next model will just do.
Exactly. And because all of that is just lost time and effort. And like, yeah, you'll get to market a little before, maybe other people will or something. But then it's also going to be probably worse than whatever the next model has anyways. And so you're kind of better off, but that's the tricky things you just don't know. You don't know what things necessarily are going to improve. So you have to
just hang out outside the OpenAI Anthropic offices. This is what's going on, guys.
Yeah, it helps to be in like the early access programs or whatever, I think, for these. But even then, it's like, it's when you're doing it's hard. How do you do roadmap planning beyond 6 months? Heck, even 6 months. It's like that's the stuff where it's fun because it's so dynamic. Everything can change, and we've seen it happen already. And so we're acutely aware and paranoid about, okay, startups are an energy conservation and application project. And so it's like case in point, like the granola founder, what they said is like dead on. It's like, not a good investment of time if you think there's high probability that this will be fixed upstream effectively, maybe in short order,
You know what I really like about all this? I feel like there's a lot of kind of bullshit work to a certain extent with like PM has to write a bunch of documents, and then developers have to set up all these environments and download stuff. And the core feedback loop is just you build something, you talk to customers, show the customer, you build me like that. So that's what I really like about what you're building, because you're getting rid of all this bullshit, man. Just getting stuff into the hands of customers as quickly as possible, and then getting the feedback. That's what actually matters, right? You know what I mean?
I totally agree. And for me, it's my co-founder and I, we learned how to code because it was the only way to get stuff in front of customers, right? It's if this stuff existed then, it's I don't know if I would have gone as deep as I have, on understanding how software works now, to building whatever have you. Because especially if you're a product person or an entrepreneur, it's of course, great code managers and making sure the software is going to be reliable, performant, all that matters, right? But it's actually the rote task of writing that is often ancillary to the higher order task that actually really matters, that determines whether any of this code is even going to be used by anyone ever. It's does this thing solve your problem? A prospective customer, yes or I mean, and if the faster you can get answers on that, oh my God, amazing, right? That's I think the hardest part about building products or services or startups or whatever is just, it can take a very long time to actually get real data and insights from customers, on if something is great or not, and this accelerates that, I don't know, order of magnitude more, and at a fraction of the cost.
I love it, man. I love it. All you need is Bolt, and you gotta do some shit posting on Twitter, and then have to get the customers, and then that's all you need.
I loved your meme with the Jeff Bezos overlooking the.
Yeah.
I retweeted that from our company account. I was like, God, that is a dank meme.
So where can people find Bolt, and also where can people follow you?
Yeah. So for Bolt, we have the simplest domain in the world. It's bolt.new. You can just go there. I think our Twitter link and stuff is on that page. But if, on Twitter, we are at bolt.new, and not the period, but BOLTDOTNEW. So bolt.new spelled out. And then my Twitter is, I think I'm Eric Simons 40. So that's where you find me. And I tweet. Yeah, I tweet every day or two or something. I don't know. But I post stuff that I find interesting, when we're releasing stuff. And so yeah, hope you follow me there.
Awesome, Eric. I really appreciate your conversation, and hope to see great things for Bolt coming soon. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.